You know, there's a gift and a curse that comes along with your favorite team being good. Ticket prices go through the roof. Travel for away games seems impossible. And then where the heck are all the fans when you finally get to town? Well, Bills fans don't have to worry about that anymore. There's no better way to follow your Buffalo Bills on the road than with Fans of Buffalo. Our packages make for hassle-free travel, all while getting access to exclusive events. From travel accommodations, Bills backers parties, catered tailgates, and game tickets, we take care of it all. Check us out at fansofbuffalo.com and book your next away game with the best.
Statewide, nationwide, worldwide, once again, it is the phenomenon known as Line to Gain here on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. I am the big O, Jerry Ostroski. She is Sara Larson, and we are one day late. We know that. We had a little bit of issues yesterday. Not a problem, but we're back today, bringing you this week's. We're going to talk a little bit about last week's big win at home, the home opener against the Raiders. We'll dive into the Washington Redskins matchup a little bit. And in the last 15 minutes, we'll get into our college picks, and we'll talk about the world of college football as well. But we're here every week, usually on Wednesday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. And Sarah, how you doing? I know you had a great time. You went from New York City. You jet set it over to the great city of Buffalo. Tell me about your trip. Tell me how the last couple of weeks have been.
Opening weekend's always fun. Home opening weekend is, I shouldn't say that. Opening weekend's always fun. Home opener weekend's even better. Had a great time, of course. Loved the dub. Absolutely loved the dub. And we looked really good. Unfortunately, Monday with my flights being delayed and sitting at the airport, I already started feeling a little blah, and it just got worse over the last couple of days. So I've been struggling a little bit. I actually have a black eye. Hopefully I have enough makeup on so you guys don't all see. My luggage fell on my face. It's
What
wonderful when the guy
out of the overhead bin?
yeah, it's fun when the guy next to you says, "Oh, hon, let me get that for you." Okay, thanks. And then boom, right on my face. So, I will never let anyone that I don't know get my bag for me ever again.
Well, I was hoping you didn't partake in the recent trend in the NFL, which is these ridiculous fan brawls that are going on in the stands. So I'm glad to know that at
Yeah.
least you weren't a part of something like that.
Yeah, not at home. I mean, when we were in New York, it was that fun, give and take a little bit. But in the end, they were all giving us hell leaving, leaving the stadium in Jersey. But, when you give it, you got to be able to take it. So, it was laughs and jokes and a good time. But at home, I mean, and to be honest with you, I don't have any problems with Raiders fans. I haven't ever noticed, any
Raiders fans
issues.
are great.
Yeah.
I thought some of the best atmospheres. They played twice, I think, while I was up there, and some of the best atmospheres
Yeah.
in the stadium are when the Raiders fans show up because they bring an interesting cross section of America with them. A lot of times, it's awful fun to look at, but that's just me. Anyway.
Oh, God. Ah,
Let's
but
just
yeah,
say when the
so
Raiders showed up, let's just say that when the Raiders show up, a lot of the finer establishments across the border into Canada were probably shut down because they had nobody that was working, so to speak.
all right. I won't even go there.
I mean, I'm just making observations, right? That's what we do
Yeah.
on the show. But anyway, big win against the Raiders. What'd you take away from the game other than um, we had a quarterback that played the way he should play every week? Thought Josh Allen played a tremendous game. Took what they gave him, no turnovers, protected the
Mhm.
football, and obviously it showed offensively, not only in the
Right.
score but just in production and the way they went about their business.
I think it's kind of what we talked about last week. When I slipped and almost, F this, F that. Josh took what he was given and he listened to the offensive game plan, and he, methodically went down the field, these, little, 6, 7, 8 yard passes that no one thinks is all that fun. But then once in a while, you get a 30, 40 yard pass because they're not prepared for it. So we looked great. Josh looked great. Josh got offensive player of the week in the AFC
Right.
because he looked so great. So I just feel like he needs, to continue to protect the ball, continue to do exactly what he did this past week, and hopefully Dorsey can start to build on whatever it was that he saw this past week and develop. I, I'm gonna give Dorsey his props right now. He developed the perfect game plan for that game. So let's see if he can keep it going.
I think that this is the Bills' offense, and after such a dismal first game, the way they played in New York, or I should say in Jersey, if you look at stats, and not talking about individual game stats, but I'm talking about stats after 2 games in the NFL. Josh is ranked the 10th overall quarterback in the league. He's 60 78, 510 yards passing. He does have the 3 INTs. The interesting part, 7 sacks. But, he's sitting there at 10th. As an offense, the Bills are 5th overall in total offense. And, last week didn't see it's crazy. When you play efficient offense, it doesn't look like much, right? I mean, nothing went over the top. There were no circus plays. There's a couple of really good scramble plays. I thought the one scramble, the pass that Josh made was elite. But it's like when offense is really good and really efficient, fans get restless. Fans get chippy because it's boring, right? And right now, offensive production, Diggs is 13th overall in the league. Gabe Davis 27th. The number that I want to see change, and obviously we hope to see a change over the course of the season, is Kincaid sitting at 75th overall and receiving 10 catches, 69 yards. But I really like what they're doing offensively. It just reminds me of kind of a West Coast feel. And I think as teams start getting impatient with allowing the Bills to complete so many passes underneath, they're going to start taking chances. As long as we give Josh time up front is when you're going to start seeing Diggs making the big plays over top. So I think that game went about as good as it could after the New York Jets debacle the
Right.
week before.
Yeah, and I mean, and even if you look at overall stats right now, we're comparing 2 weeks, and the weeks were completely different weeks. I mean, they were
Right,
like you couldn't have gotten worse on one and better on the other. So, you know, his 3 turnovers all from week one. His the sacks. You said I think it was 7 sacks. 5 of them were from the Jets game. So,
right,
I'm looking at it at this point in time and saying, let's keep it going. I think the Commanders are 2-0. I think it's going to be a good test. They have a very good running game. They have, 2 very good wide receivers, kind of just like what we just saw. And a good defense. Obviously, their defense isn't exactly where they had expected them to be over the last couple of years, but it's going to be a challenge, which is good because we need another challenge before heading, back home to take on the Dolphins in two
right.
weeks.
Well, think about this, though, Sarah. I mean, you talk about the Commanders in that game coming up. Um, this is a team that's good. I mean, they play really good. And you talked about their running game and stuff. Their defense leads the NFL in negative plays created. Okay, so out of 120 snaps this season, 21 of their plays have resulted in negative yardage. Okay, so that's a clip of 17.5%. And when you look at, right now, the defense that everybody talks about in the NFL is who? It's the Cowboys, right? Micah Parsons and the amount of big plays they're making, they're second in the league at 15.3. So almost 2% or over 2% more as far as negative plays created by this Washington defense. This is a tough game. It's always been tough. Historically, it's been tough for the Bills to play in Washington for some reason. We had tough games down there. The Bills have had tough games recently down there. You know, it's something that's tough for them, I believe. But one thing is, I think Stephon Diggs might be from that area. If I'm
Baltimore.
not, yeah, he's from down in that
Yeah.
area. So I'm sure he'll have a big crowd of people there. Also, probably sad but motivated with the news coming out of Dallas today that his brother
Yeah.
had suffered the season-ending ACL injury. But
In training or
right.
at practice. I hate that. I
Well,
absolutely hate it.
and
Non-contact injury at practice.
I know, and I want
Part
to
of the
talk
game,
about
I
that.
know.
I know I'm not saying that, but I wanted to, and a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit about that because last week, and I know we want to talk more about this win against the Raiders, break that down, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Commanders before we get into our college football segment with 15 minutes left in the show. But you know, if you looked at the catastrophic injuries last week in the NFL, they took place on grass. There's been a huge push to have all grass fields. It's a safer field. And we had just as many injuries on grass last week as we had on turf. And I just think that it's the realization that there's a lot of factors happening in injuries right now. One is it's a violent game played by violent adults. Okay. And I guess that goes into that whole thing. It's a part of the game, but it's a violent game. The second thing is that we don't rest anymore as players. I heard something today that was really, really funny. It was a cool segment that we were talking that they were making this comment about players training and practicing year round now, as opposed to where they used to have time off. And a guy was talking about remembering going to a car dealership to buy a car, and his car salesman was none other than Bob Greasy. And back in the day when they weren't making that kind of money, and I remember Eli Pitts, the late Eli Pitts, who was our running backs coach back when Marv was the head coach of the Bills, would tell us stories about how the Monday morning after the season was over, he would get a bus or whatever and go downtown, and he would walk to this, I believe it was a box factory, and he'd start his job for the offseason. And the reason training camps were so rigorous back then was because they had to get the guys all back in shape because they were working all off season to make money for their families. Nowadays, we don't do that. And we take all this year-round training and no rest, and we compile it with just massive amounts of physical training by these players to where we are now taking the limits of what our bodies can do above and beyond what they were made for. Um, it's just bound to happen. At some point, there has to be a I don't know what I don't think you say the white flag is waved, but there has to be something as far as the off season that allows these guys to get away, to mentally rest, to rest their bodies, and just be able to be for a while. And it seems like as the money's increased and the stakes have increased, we've gone away from that. So I've always believed that the body only has so many reps in it, and
Right.
unfortunately, Terrell Diggs found his limit today, and that's a sad story. But hopefully, he'll be back next year and ready to roll.
Right. I want to talk about that a little bit more because I do want to talk about some of the off-season stuff with Josh. But let's take a break and get this ad in, and then we'll talk about it when we come back.
Imagine waking up to a world that's as clear as your dreams. With Zeiss Smile technology, this is your reality. At Fichte, Endel, and Elmer Eye Care, our mission is your vision. Conducted by a team of expert surgeons leveraging leading-edge technology, our procedure is safeguarded, swift, and tailored to your eye care needs. Say goodbye to the limits of glasses or contacts. Embrace a world where your vision keeps pace with your life's aspirations. Contact us today at 800-309-2020 or visit us online at fichte.com. At Fichte, Endel, and Elmer Eye Care, we are focused on you.
I'm laughing, by the way, because John did that take in literally two takes. He did the ad thing, and it
Right.
took me about 27 to get mine down. So I don't know how he does it so perfectly, but he got it done in literally two takes. So
Well, he's not a
um,
perfectionist, probably.
maybe, but I mean, it came out pretty darn perfect. You'll
It
never
did
hear me
sound good.
play. You'll never hear me play mine in our show. So they could play it in other shows. I don't want to hear my
Right.
own voice over. But anyways, I wanted to comment a little bit about what you said because over the summer, over the off season, there was a lot of comments about Josh is playing golf again, or Josh is on a vacation with his girlfriend again,
Yeah.
or Josh is doing like Josh is going out to dinner. What happened to the Josh that was, constantly working out? And then, obviously the quarterback show came out, and, why can't Josh be like Mahomes and always working out? Like, well, maybe he is, but not always on camera. Like, like we don't know what's going on for the other, 23 hours of these people's day. How do you feel about, fans putting a certain expectation on players to focus throughout the entire year?
The only the only way I can put this, Sarah, is to quote the great Meek Mill. And the great Meek Mill says in the song "Dreams and Nightmares," "Gangsters move in silence, and I don't even talk a lot." I think it's awesome that he does what he does. You don't see what he's doing in the morning. You don't see what he's
Right.
doing before noon. Nobody knows what that guy's doing. And has anybody seen him walk into training camp 40 pounds heavy with a beer gut? No, they haven't. I mean, Josh is in tremendous shape. His arm is always in shape, ready to go. He's never having to take practices off because he's got a sore elbow. It's it's almost, it's like we have to find something to bitch about, right? Because if we're not complaining about something, we're not happy as a society. So we have to find something to complain about. And I think it's interesting that when I was in the league, you could go home, you could train, you came back a couple times for OTAs, and then you came back for training camp. Then there was this huge push and it started, Sarah, when the college guys started getting the NFL jobs, because they wanted to run things like the colleges, which is they had their thumb on every player at all time, every waking minute of the day. So you didn't go home. You stayed in the NFL city, or you went home for maybe a few weeks and then they brought you back and you trained in the facility and you trained in and I mean, I go back to when the failed experiment of when Chip Kelly became the head coach in Philadelphia. And I laugh because I watched and listened to what he was trying to do with these guys. He's trying to make Jason Peters, who's played in the league for how many years? I mean, he's played in the league, it seems like
Same age as me.
for
I
like my
think he's like,
entire life,
yeah.
right? And he's trying to make Jason Peters wear a sleep monitor and check in his sleep monitor weekly so they can regulate his sleep habits. Jason Peters got to the league because of two things: what God gave him and what he's doing to get ready to play, not from a sleep monitor. You can't do that with adults. So I think it's cool now that a lot of these organizations have decided to allow guys to go back to doing their own thing, because the money that they're making, and I know Diggs is one of them, they hire tremendous trainers and they work their tails off all off season. So why not get up in the morning, bust my butt, and then if I have the luxury of living in Miami or wherever, going to the beach or playing golf, or hell, playing pickleball, or hanging out
I
with my
can tell you it
family.
doesn't happen as often as you would hope.
It's just like,
I live here and it doesn't happen as much as you hope.
right, but you know what I'm saying. It's like,
Oh,
why do these guys have to put that stuff out there? They live private
right.
lives, be private. I mean, don't let people know what you're doing.
Not to change up the conversation too much, but just everyone, just a reminder, it is Thursday night. So if you haven't set your lineups and if you haven't set your games, make sure you do that because the first game starts at 8:15. Um, I just got two alerts that two of my starters are now out tonight. So
Mm.
yeah. So that's why I was like looking down a lot if
Do we need
if
to do
anyone's
we need
wondering.
to end the show so you can switch the lineup real quick?
No, I'm good. I did it. I switched it out. So
Mind the
hopefully
Game
I
will be hosted by me the rest of the night,
yeah.
as Sarah has to go make a
Sarah needs
trade
to
real fast.
needs to focus on fantasy. No. Um,
What was here's something that I thought was that I wanted to touch on from last week after two games, and I wanted to touch on with this Raiders game, and the thing that I think is there's areas we need to work on, obviously. I do think that it's interesting. I think we have only 3 sacks through 2 games. And I don't necessarily believe it's just the Von Miller factor. We have good players up front. I know Floyd sat out yesterday. He was limited today along with Micah Hyde in practice. He was a little banged up, but he's a tremendous pass rusher. We have pass rushers. is it interesting that we only have 3? I have my reasons, but I was going to ask you first: is that of concern having 3 sacks through 2 games, especially
Um,
against a Jets O line that wasn't very good?
to be honest with you, I didn't know it was only 3 because I thought we had 3 against the Jets. So, because Floyd had 1.5, and then Russo, I believe, had a half, and someone else had 1. So, are you sure that they didn't update? Didn't we have a sack last week
Well,
against the
I'll
Raiders?
read this to you. So, and
Okay. So,
this is
I
where
could
I
be
sit.
wrong, but
Right. In doing research, it says Montez Sweat, who plays for the Commanders, I almost used the old name, um, leads Washington's defense with 3 sacks through 2 games. Buffalo's entire defense has 3 sacks through 2 games. Washington's defense has 10 sacks through 2 games, including 1.5 sack performance last week from Chase Young. Um,
yeah, we didn't have any sacks last week. I just looked
yeah,
against the Raiders.
right.
Um,
Floyd had that one big pressure, but he didn't get it. He didn't get him down on the ground. Is that a
right.
concern? And I have a reason. I have a reason what I think it is, but I kind of wanted
So
your
I'm gonna go kind of twofold on this one, and it's gonna be the easy way out. I would have said yes, it's a major concern if we didn't have also 6 tackles for a loss. And yes, I just looked it up. So I had the numbers in front of me. I just didn't memorize that. Um, and if you think about it, we held last week, we held Josh Jacobs to negative rushing yards.
right,
Negative rushing yards. Like, to me, we were more focused on that aspect. And I think that that's fine as long as we're still getting pressure. Because we still Garoppolo still didn't look comfortable. I mean,
right.
he had a couple of good throws, but he didn't look comfortable. Um, so yes, it's concerning maybe against another team, but I think that the defense played so well that I'm not necessarily concerned, because if you look at it, we got 3 sacks against the Jets and lost, and then we looked amazing against the Raiders and got no sacks.
All right. So I'm going to put this up real quick. Um, Roy says that, or I'm sorry, that was the wrong one. So Roy says this: I believe I heard that they have been blitzing much. Maybe there's a reason why there's minimal sacks. Actually, Roy, it's the opposite. Okay. Here's what happens because McDermott does like the blitz. And here's what, and especially a blitz kind of a defense coordinator is going to heat things up when it's third down in passing situations. Here's the problem with that for defensive linemen. When you bring pressure on a blitz, okay, when you bring pressure, that then makes the defensive lineman rush in specific lanes. They don't have a two-way go anymore because when you have guys blitzing, they're blitzing specific gaps, which means your defensive line has to stay in the other gaps so that your gap sound. Even on a rush, they do that. So I think a little bit of that has to do with McDermott heating things up. He did bring some pressure last week, and does like to bring pressure in passing situations, especially with I think 3rd and 10 or more. So I think that has a little bit to do with it. When an offensive lineman doesn't have to worry about a two-way go, it's a little bit easier for him to pass pro than it is if he's got to worry about a guy going inside or out. So that might have contributed to some of that. But hopefully this week we can heat things up a little bit more. I for one like to see the quarterback pressured. You can't let an NFL, especially like a Sam Howell that can spin it. I mean, I know he's out of nowhere, but he can spin the ball. He's a
Yeah,
good
I
passer
mean,
of the football.
he's in his second year. I think we
Right,
will pressure him because let's see how he can handle it. So
right.
I think we will definitely blitz more this week. But
But
we
see, I
also have
don't.
to pay attention. We have to pay attention to the fact they have Brian Robinson. And then they have Dotson and oh my God, the other wide receiver that's even better than Dotson. I can't think of his name all of a sudden.
I don't.
McLaurin.
But yeah, but
McLaurin. So
I don't think that when you talk about the stopping Josh Jacobs last week, we didn't do anything out of the ordinary to stop the run. We just played well and stopped the run. Especially when you had Ed Oliver with a ton of penetration on 1st and 2nd down, getting upfield, and it was just it was not like we went out and blitzed on rundowns very much. I think it was just the guys played well.
yeah. I think that they did, that I think that in the end that's the thing. They played well. I'm not gonna I'm not going to argue with the fact that we didn't have any sacks last week. I think
Okay.
that if we can play that well without sacks and we get the W, that's all that matters to me. In the end, that's what the W matters. I'm not going to say it's the only thing that matters, because we talked about that last year where we were 13-3. But we didn't look the part going into the postseason, unfortunately. So obviously the W's matter to get there, but figuring it out along the way also matters. But we have a little time. I will say I was impressed with how Bernard played. I think he did a lot better this past week than he did the first week. Um, for those of you who don't know or don't follow Twitter or Buffalo, or like the Bills site and their app and all that other stuff, Kirksey decided to retire today.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all very excited to have Kirksey on our practice squad, and most of us thought he'd be starting by week 3, because we just figured 2 weeks for him to get acclimated. And then he decided to retire. So either he was told that they were going to bring him up and he decided he didn't want to, or they told him that they weren't going to bring him up, and he realized that he didn't want to be on a practice squad. I don't know what the exact answer is, but we no longer have that option. Um, but we did re-sign AJ Klein to the practice squad.
Right. And Bernard, tackle-wise, defensively, he's rated 29th in the league. 17 total tackles over 2 games. Milano is 87th with 12 tackles, but he does have the 2 big picks. And the guy, I don't think you're praising Matt Milano for the number of tackles he has. You're praising Matt Milano for the big plays he has, the splash plays. The guy is, every more and more I watch him, he's really special. I mean, and he is just tailor-made for today's style of football. And I think that he just
Eric
gets better.
if you
Yeah.
guys haven't heard, you should definitely go on Twitter or whatever to look it up. Eric Bieniemy just literally went off about Milano for like 30 seconds, just about how great of a player he is, how truly wonderful he is to be around. Just went off. You don't hear other coaches talk about a player that meaningfully, without, like, sometimes you're just like, okay, they're blowing smoke. Did
Yeah.
they
No,
really even
that
know?
wasn't.
That was not. He really seemed to have an appreciation for him, which makes, I think it makes us all feel good, because a lot of us were like, okay, well, we gave Milano the extension, we gave Ed Oliver the extension, and we let Edmonds go. Did we give the right people the extensions? I'm still not 100% sure on the giving it to Oliver over Edmonds. But I will say Oliver has not disappointed me at all yet this season. I think he's played well. I don't know if it's $16 million well yet. I haven't really really broke it down, but to me he's played fine. He's played a lot better than he did last year. So I'm okay with Ed
So I think it
as of right
comes
now.
down to, what are you a fan of? Are you a fan of the team, or are you a fan of individual players, right? I think that if you're an individual player fan and you were a Edmonds fan, of course you'd want to pay him. I think he's rated right now 4th or 5th total in the league in tackles. But that's what he does. I mean, he's done that his whole entire career in Buffalo. That does not correlate necessarily to wins or success or what they're trying to do. And when you're trying to pay people, obviously somebody has to go. They decided that it was Edmonds, but I have no problem with Bernard. I think Bernard's going to get better and better every week. I think he's going to get more and more comfortable. I also think it's a big reason why Kirksey probably retired, because he's in that room watching. I mean, he's been in the league long enough. He knows
I'm
what
just
good
not
play
ready
is.
I'm not ready to crown Bernard yet. Like,
No, but that's fine.
we'll
I
see.
mean, that's fine. That's what it means to be a fan. I mean, but I'm just looking at. I think I look at it more as a team thing as opposed to individuals, because, like, for instance, there's a lot of fans of the guys that are in our secondary. I thought our secondary looked old on Sunday. It's showing its age. Um, you know, and it's going to be something that we're going to really have to monitor. Elam being on the inactive for the second week in a row is not something that I feel
Right.
is good for this football team, especially with the fact that because aren't they admitting with Elam being on the inactive that the guy that everybody's been trying to run off for years and Dane Jackson is actually better than the guy that was our first round pick last year.
Potentially, but they could also just be there's a part of me that feels like they might be stuck into not giving Elam that chance. Or he's just not fitting in with the style of defense that I thought that with McDermott calling the defense this year that we would be more man coverage and Elam would be playing more just because that's his strength. Um, but
I
I look
actually agree with you 100%. I thought the same exact thing.
so I've been completely and totally surprised, and that has nothing against um
Yeah,
Benford. I think Benford has played terrific. I think Dane Jackson has played, decent. Um, White, I think, played better this week than he played the first week. The first week, it seemed like no one wanted to tackle. His coverage was decent though. I would say though, between when you said that they seem old or like their age is showing, I saw it more week 1 than I did week 2, except for the first drive, obviously the scoring drive
right.
of week 2. Um, I was nervous after the Raiders pretty much took it down the field and scored. I was like, oh God, this is not going to happen. But I think that they played well throughout most of the rest of the game. Um, but I have to go back and forth and say, is it they played well because the offense was doing so well, so it didn't matter as much. So it really, it's going to take a moment to really see when who we play, whether or not these guys have lost a step or not. And I don't want to believe that they have. I
I
think
think
that
that
we
game, yeah, I think the game last week, Sarah, helped our defense, our secondary, especially our safeties, because with us getting up big quick, it kind of took and in the front seven shutting down the run, it kind of took that need for those safeties to be coming downhill and making a bunch of tackles out of the equation. It turned into a 7-on-7 match, right? The Raiders trying to
Mhm.
catch up. So a little bit of wear and tear was kept off of them last week. But, right now, if I look at our defense, and it seems like 90% of the people that talk about the Bills and create content and the media, the focus is always upon the guy at the middle linebacker spot. I don't think Bernard is our biggest issue. We better hope to God we stay healthy in the safety spot. I thought Rupp was. I I I I, I know you've been praising him for a long time. That signing, I can see now why you were. And that I'm talking. What's Rupp's first name?
Rap Taylor
Or
Rap.
Rap, not Rupp. Rap, Teddy. Yeah, Rap. I'm sorry, I said Rupp. I meant Rap. He's a hammer. I kind of like him. The
But
fact
see,
that
now
they
I thought he played terrible the first game. It was this second game I think he played well.
right,
So I actually am feeling to the part where if Micah can't go this weekend, don't push him. We need him for the Miami game. So sit him, let Rap come in and start this game. And it might actually be good for him to get some extra reps in. Um, but yeah, I'm a little nervous, because
well, when you have
Hamlin.
receivers going out of their way 3 or 4 days after a game, commenting on a guy that was quote unquote supposedly out of control, um, I'm all about it, man. That's how I like say I like my safeties to roll up and just demolish people. So I don't know. I just think that that's my one area that I get really nerved up on is our safety help.
And we
And
were supposed to be that was supposed to be our deepest, area. If you think
yeah,
about between, defensive backs, between corner and safety, we had so many people. We were like, who do we even cut? And now I'm nervous, if too many people go out. Hamlin was inactive again,
right,
which I have a feeling he probably will continue to be,
right.
for a little bit. So, we have to see what I would like to see Hyde possibly take the week off better, and then we're not worried about him, week 10 that, his hamstring is still bothering him or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I mean, someone just put in the comments that Trayvon Diggs with a possible ACL tear. It has been confirmed. They did the MRI. He is out for the season. Spin 0481 put it. But yeah, he's out for the season. So Dallas might actually be looking for some depth. So they could be looking either at their practice squad or to go out and trade. Um, so some people have already started, those rumors. We'll see what happens there.
Well, let's talk about this real quick before we get into our college segment in a few minutes. I want to talk about this one last deal. And one of the more interesting points of this past game against the Raiders before we put it to bed and get ready to play the Washington Commanders this week. Spencer Brown. There was no in fan comments and media comments and anything else about Spencer Brown this past week. Some felt he played a much better game and he played well. Others were like he was still ineffective. Lucky the ball got out and all that stuff. I believe that he did play better, but I also believe, and this is another sign why I believe more in Dorsey than I think a lot of people do. I mean, Dorsey game planned that game so well. He had a tight end or running back most of the time helping Spencer Brown that entire game. Instead of sitting there beating your head in the ground, trying to wait for it to happen, he just said, you know what, Spencer, we're going to give you help. We're going to chip. We're going to keep the tight end in. They ran a lot of drag stuff like inside on to be, and then drag the tight ends out to the flat, which was built into the plays. I thought if you really want to talk about it, yeah, Brown did play better this week, but I think Dorsey did a tremendous job of helping him play better this week.
I agree. I think he did play better though. He actually had a lot to say about Jonathan. I can't think of his last name right now. Starts with a K. Kingsley, isn't that it? Yeah. So he had a
Yeah,
lot to say about him. Kind of prepping him during the week to take on
right.
Crosby. So I think that he did play better, but I did notice we were consistently we consistently had two tight ends out there, or Reggie was out there. Um, so it was one of those games where, yeah, I think he was given the help that was needed. I have to say Torrance being next to him is probably helping, because there was a couple when I watched the replay, there was a couple of plays where if it wasn't for the fact that Torrance moved over and brought help,
Well, yeah, that's
he
also
would have
built
gotten
in.
sacked.
Yeah, and that's built into it. That's gap scheme stuff, slide
Yep.
protection stuff, where Spencer knows if his guy goes inside, he's got Torrance sitting there waiting to help him. But finally, Triggs, you did it for me. Thank you. You finally brought up the guy that I wanted to talk about, because I am the leader of the Gabe Davis fan club. I'm going to contact Gabe and tell him I'm my self-appointed leader,
I don't know if you're the leader.
because if you want to get consistency, Gabe right now is 27th in the league in receiving, 8 catches, 11 targets, 124 yards and a touchdown. If anybody has anything negative to say
Contract year,
about Gabe
man.
Davis and his play,
Contract year.
who cares?
No, I'm saying it does wonders. Contract year.
Every
It's a
time
good
somebody
thing.
plays well does not necessarily mean it's a contract year.
No, I'm saying that he has motivation to play well.
And he didn't last year?
I think our whole team kind of dipped off at times, but regardless, I have said if Gabe plays consistently, we are all going to be up in arms and happy and celebrating him. I am right now happy and celebrating him. I have said nothing poor about Gabe. I actually tweeted out during the game that Gabe looks high. I was like, all right, come on, Gabe. And then he actually even played better throughout the rest of the
I
game.
want to
So
change. I want to
keep it
change the
going.
To meme. I want to change the To meme. That's my wide receiver number 2. That's my wide receiver.
I'm
my
not
guy.
going there yet.
That's my wide
But
receiver.
Jeremy Poyer, he actually might be on the number one train there, because he literally said yesterday that he believes that Gabe is going to have the second best wide receiver two year this year behind Waddle and ahead of T. Higgins. So
Why do we need a wide receiver number 2 anyway?
what do you mean
Because
why?
because right now 28% of all of Buffalo's receptions, okay, and 26% of all Buffalo's targets in the pass game go through Mr. Diggs. So why
I
do you
think
need another one?
but then once they start, doubling Diggs, and
I'm
like,
being
oh, you're being
facetious.
facetious. Okay, I was like, Jerry, why
But
are you asking this
seriously,
question?
I mean, it's obvious that we're, I always laugh about everybody that still likes to bring up the whole bromance thing between him and the quarterback. But yeah, it's obvious that the offense is still going through Diggs and is going to go through Diggs. But Gabe Davis has played well, and Roy's another one. Roy always he's a boo boo bird too. He always has negative things to say. Say what you want about Gabe, and he's not a precise route runner. He got pointed out one time for not running a precise route at the Jets.
And
One time. And now he's the worst route
actually,
runner in the league. Get out of here.
well, a lot of people have said that he has a limited route tree, but people are actually saying he's doing better this year with what he's been given. So, and that his route tree is expanding. Um, but again, I don't care about any of that, as long as I mean, he needs to figure out a way to get open, obviously. But if he can make some of those catches that he made this past weekend, whether he was open or not, he actually saved Josh on 2 passes that could have ended up being, in the wrong spot. But
Damn.
I think it was a little bit between Josh and Gabe. They, it worked.
Yep.
So
Gabe is the chosen guy
I am not going to
by
pick on Gabe
everybody. No, you just all you
until I
have to do
need
is
to.
look at the comments.
Oh,
We
I
got
know.
just look at the comments. I mean, we've got Mike Holmgren. We've got, Andy Reid. We've got, the greatest offensive minds commenting, and it's all Gabe Davis's fault.
Damn.
Everything's Gabe Davis's fault. The sun didn't come up in the
As
morning.
we lose viewership, Jerry just called me a name.
Gabe ran the wrong route. Gabe ran the wrong route.
Oh,
That's why the sun didn't come up.
um,
Seriously. Seriously. I mean, what more do you want? The guy's
uh,
out there producing, he's scoring touchdowns. And it's
hey,
still not good enough.
well,
I
it,
gave my best, but I guess my best wasn't good enough.
all I'm saying is I'm still not ready to sign him to a long-term contract, though. I want
I
to
didn't say
see
I was.
this
I
play
didn't
out.
say I was either. I'm just happy he's out there producing and
Yeah.
playing well, and it just gives me something to have fun about with our listeners and our friends that tune in every week. But every time he catches a ball, I text the same thing. Hell yeah, Gabe Davis. Hashtag wide receiver number 2. Every time. The only thing I
Um,
text more than that is when I crush Texas Tech fans when they lose. But anyway, all right. So it's time for our college football segment, folks. This college football segment is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. And here's what you need to know about
you're so
Picasso's.
funny.
Hey, football fans, the season is here. So you know that means family, football, and food. But for the NFL's best fan base, it can't be just any food. Bills Mafia only eats the best during the season. And the best is Picasso's Pizza. With 4 great locations in Western New York, it's so easy to treat yourself to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's. We are Buffalo Pizza, shipping local and nationwide. Order online at picassospizza.net.
All right.
So
So
I want to just post this before we move on,
yeah,
because
that
this
one's
is
good.
funny.
Roy, that's
Yeah.
funny. That's
So
funny.
after Jerry called everybody out in our last segment, Roy just said, "I want to be the enemy," if that's okay with Jerry. So go ahead and watch the other segment so that when you watch this, you understand what I'm talking about. But that's funny.
I don't know who I'd want to be. But my starting wide receiver, my number 1 would probably be Gabe Davis, I bet.
You're number 1? What?
I love it.
You're crazy.
You're too easy.
You're crazy. All right. Mm.
So I can't wait for the game where he does run like 3 bad routes and we got bad and I'm going to get blistered. But that's okay. I've got broad shoulders. I can handle it.
All right, college football. So we talked about it a little bit last week that we're going to get a little bit more into college football the last 15 minutes every week. There's there's not a lot to talk about in the beginning of the season. But there was this week. So we definitely want to kind of hit on a couple of things. I wanted to first open it up by saying Colorado. Um, a lot of people that don't watch college football watch that game. There was a little bit of controversy with the Colorado State player hitting a Colorado player a little bit late. And in the end, there ended up being some death threats and ridiculousness. Surfing the interwebs. It's football, and I know that Jer and Spence talked about it last night. Um, I was just helping out Jer cut up a couple of clips, and it reminded me about it a little bit. It is football. Um, yes, we hate dirty plays. We hate late plays, especially if someone gets hurt. Um, but literally, Hunter himself said it was a football, like, let it go. So
Right. It's a
Dion
football
went up
play.
there, said, let it go. So I hope everyone moves forward with it. Right now, top 25. So we got, Georgia, sitting at number one. I think they're going to sit there for a little while. I don't think they're the same Georgia team as we've seen over the last couple of years. But right now, I don't think anyone's really, going to unseat them. Michigan's look good. I will give Michigan their props. I'm waiting for Daryl to say something. um, Texas. I am actually very, very, very surprised that Texas is doing so well after losing, Bijan. Um, it's I'm pretty impressed by what they've been doing. FSU. You know, it pains me to say anything nice about FSU, but I on Facebook, because all my friends are either Gators or they're Knowles. I was like, FSU doesn't suck. That's the best as I can do for that. But going through quickly, I think the University of Washington still looks really good. Ohio State, it's kind of where my head's at with Georgia. I just don't feel like they're quite the same team. I think they're still trying to figure out the quarterback a little bit. My Hurricanes won again. We moved up a little bit, so we're 20. So congratulations to my Hurricanes. And what's really surprising to me is the Gators, who looked absolutely terrible opening up the season, just beat Tennessee, and they are now ranked 25th.
Um, First of all, the Colorado deal. Yes, was it? Uh, it was a bit borderline. It was a football play. It wasn't necessarily cheap. Um, those things happen. What's going on in college sports with the death threats, and then you've got the fights in the stands and people dying, and it's just stupid. I mean, it's
Yep.
dumb. It's asinine what's going on, and I really hope that the NFL and college football, college athletics, really start putting down penalties that set examples and make people think before they do ignorant stuff like they've been doing, because it needs to change, and it's not right for families to go to games. And I've got my kids next to me, and they got to watch a guy get knocked unconscious, and then he ends up having a health episode and dies. That's not why you go to games, and it's wrong, and it needs to change. But as far as the top 25 goes, I can attest number 8, number 16 are really good because my son played both of them in back-to-back weeks. And Washington has a Heisman candidate quarterback in Penix. He's a first-round draft pick guy. He doesn't get hit. He got hit 4 times last year. He hasn't been hit much this year. Tongue in cheek, my son got him the first play of the game when they played him, and it was a roughing the passer penalty, but that's besides the point. It was close. He was just setting the tone. It was first play of the game,
There you go.
just like his dad taught him all these years. But no, seriously, they're a really good team. Penix is good. They got draft picks at wide out. OU is tremendous. I haven't seen team speed like they have right now in a long time in Norman. They are fast. Now, I still think they have some weak areas. I still think they're going to have some problems with some teams that can match up and that are also a little more physical, but they're for real too. But the thing that I look at in the top 10 anyway, is that I still don't know about Texas. We'll find out about Texas in 3 weeks because that's when they play the Red River rivalry against OU down in the Cotton Bowl. OU's got Cincinnati this week, first Big 12 game for Cincinnati. Then they play at Iowa State, or at home against Iowa State, which is having all kinds of problems. Matt Campbell's reeling, had the big gambling controversy, and has lost all his good players, and he's losing it. But the thing that I look at in these teams, I don't know if Texas is physical or not. I think Florida can be physical. I think or Florida State can be physical. I showed some of that. They showed some grit and winning some close games. SC is as soft as Charmin. They
No
are
defense.
exactly like their head coach, soft, who actually he dismissed a reporter for 2 weeks, put him on 2 weeks of whatever you call it, probation or whatever, for contacting players not in a press
So
conference or something.
quickly, I have a question about that. About USC? Do you feel that they are only giving them credit and putting them in the top 10 because of their quarterback and the fact that everyone thinks he's going to, go
Yeah,
one or
they're
two?
a Lincoln Riley team. They're going to play tremendous on offense with the quarterback. They've got athletes, but they're soft. He builds a soft program. It is a rah-rah style of football. It's all,
I
ringing
know, but
bells,
there's a lot of college teams that are good on offense and bad
Right.
on defense,
No,
and they're
yes,
not ranked in the top.
I do
They're not
believe
ranked in the
Caleb,
top
yes.
5.
I do believe Caleb Williams has a lot of that. Yes, I do. I think Caleb Williams is a big reason why they're probably 5. But I think they're soft. I think they'll get beat. Do I think they'll get beat against teams that they match up with that can play, you know, other teams that maybe are not, quite as tough? Probably not. But I think when they play the tough teams like Notre Dame, possibly Oregon, Utah, for instance, those teams are going to hit them in the mouth. I don't
Right.
trust SC to hit back. I just don't see it. Oregon, you're going to find it a lot this week. I know in our picks, Sarah, that was one of our games. I picked Oregon to win outright. They're laying 21. I picked Oregon. I think it's going to be a tall task for Colorado, especially after the
Yeah.
emotional type of game that they had this past week.
I'm gonna actually throw that up right now.
I
Our
think
picks.
Penn State's soft. Penn State is always good to lose 1 or 2 games they shouldn't lose and then play good against the good teams. I think we'll learn about Ohio State this week, playing Notre Dame. Huge matchup. I'm excited to watch that game. I love the head coach of Notre Dame, Hamilton. I'm not a Notre Dame fan, but I do like him, and I like what they bring to the table. So
Yeah.
it will be interesting.
Yeah, so I'll run through mine. And Ronnie is part of the Mafia cast. He wanted to partake in it as well. So he actually signed up. If you guys want to sign up, the link is under Line to Gains Twitter. Go ahead, sign up, and just start every week with us and make your picks. I picked 10 games randomly, and then we go from there. I think we all agreed with FSU, pulling off the win against Clemson this week. I think it'll be I think it's going to be a close game. I'm not quite sure where Clemson's at right now. I still think that they're trying to figure things out. I think the only reason why it's going to be close is because it is in Clemson, which is always hard to play there. Um, I did pick TCU. I see that both of you guys picked SMU with the points. I think TCU is fighting at this point to remain relevant. And it's at TCU. I think they'll pull it out. You can
Well,
talk a little bit
it's a
about.
big rivalry. SMU's coach left and went to TCU.
Yep.
I looked at the way SMU played against OU and how well they played against OU in Norman. I like them getting 6 points. Don't necessarily know if they'll win, but I think they will cover.
All right, and then we all have Texas A&M. Now the Bama Ole Miss game. Now I actually, if this was played at Ole Miss, I would have flipped my pick. I don't think Bama's going to lose another game that quickly, especially at home. So,
I
and
think
again, it could be close enough that it's within the points. That was my only concern is, can they beat them by a touchdown? And I think that that's what it's going to be, is a touchdown.
I think Lane is like a bad rash for Saban. He just won't go away. He's like a bad case of the shingles.
I can't
I think.
stand Bama though, so if they lose this game, I'll be extremely
I
happy.
mean, when's the last time we've seen Bama switch quarterbacks out the way they have the last so many weeks? I think Ole Miss is primed to do something big. I like Lane Kiffin and his history at Saban, so I'll take
I
the
hope I'm
six and a
wrong.
half. Yeah,
I
I'll
hope
take the
I'm
six
wrong.
and a half.
I definitely. So this is the reason why I pulled it up, because we were just talking about Colorado and Oregon. Um so I am taking Colorado with the points. I don't think Colorado's going to win. But you know, for them to lose by more than 3 touchdowns was a little iffy for me. Now I don't think Colorado's defense is quite there yet. I think that their offense is obviously a lot better. So I think that trying to go toe to toe with Oregon, it's going to be offensively, and whether or not their defense can hold it close enough for long enough to stay within those to stay within the points. But I do have Colorado, covering or Colorado with the points. I don't
I
think
actually,
Oregon could cover that much.
I think that we've always felt that the weakness of this Colorado team was their offensive line and their defensive lines. I think it
Their
showed
offensive
this.
line is not
I think
great.
it showed this week. I think Oregon, they made let's face facts. Colorado State's quarterback looked like a possible Heisman candidate with the way he played. I just see Oregon being that much more talented, and I think it's without Hunter. I think Hunter's a guy that he's like that. He's like Sauce. He's like these guys. You can put him on one side of the field, and I know everybody talks about him playing both ways, and I think a part of that is yeah, Dion gets him to catch the ball on offense, but really a lot of that is some of the Heisman hype and all that. But I also think he's a top 10 draft pick shutdown corner. And without him out there shutting half the field down, it's going to be tough for Colorado.
All right, and we all have the same for Oklahoma State. Um, the Wyoming game. I'm actually surprised that all three of us picked Wyoming. As of right now, they're 2-1, but they actually look pretty decent. So it's fun watching them. I think probably because Josh used to play there. It's the only reason why I kind of pay attention. But I mean, I'll be realistic. I watched 2 of their games this year, and I've been impressed.
I was
And the
hoping to
2 games,
goodness I was hoping to goodness you said it's because you like the uniforms.
no, I mean, they're all right. But
The
the first
brown and
the
yellow, they're god awful.
yeah, I know. The two games that they won, I watched. So I feel bad that they lost the other game, but um Washington State. Again, I was definitely gonna pick them just because where we differed was the Notre Dame Ohio State. So Notre Dame and Ohio State are the 2 teams that I hate more than any other team other than Florida State. So I hate Notre Dame. I hate Ohio State. So I hope they beat the crap out of each other back and forth, and it's the worst looking game. It's 3-0 at going into the fourth quarter. I hope they both look terrible and they both start dipping down in the rankings. But with that being said, I just feel like Ohio State's still trying to figure a couple things out. Um, so I think Ohio State is still going to win. I just think that it's going to be by 3 points. So that's why I took Notre Dame with the 3.5.
I just like Ohio State's overall edge at athleticism from top to bottom. Notre Dame's got good players. They play good football. They're known for their big physical offensive line, their tight ends. But I just think that they sometimes struggle with some of the elite athletic teams in college football. I think Ohio State right now is one of those. And if the quarterback can just play a
He
decent
just needs
game,
to settle down. I
yeah,
mean,
just
like,
play a decent game,
but with that
they'll be
being said,
fine.
if Notre Dame's corners can actually have a good game against the Ohio State wide receivers, that's going to show a lot.
Yeah.
So because Ohio State, they're still so questionable right now as a quarterback play. Yes, he's played better the last 2 weeks, but not to me. It's against worse competition. So um, he just hasn't showed me what he's capable of yet, and I hope he figures it out because I really wanted Marvin Harrison to have a great season. Because I feel like he deserves it. He balled out last year, and I just want to see him keep that going.
Well, I see everybody saying they want Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft. You better hope you don't
Yeah.
get him, because if you do get him, that means we did really bad the rest of the season, because he's going to be a
Or
high round pick.
or like I said last week, Ohio State continues to look bad and Marvin Harrison doesn't get the ball as often and he says screw it and decides to sit the rest of the season and he falls in the draft because of that.
How do you have time to think of these scenarios? I don't even.
It's a
I
long
just.
flight going back
Uh,
and forth. You should
yeah, Mike
imagine what I'm going to think about going to Washington this weekend.
Micah Parsons sat out the whole season. It didn't hurt him very much.
Yeah.
He didn't drop in the draft.
Yeah. No, I don't think he's going to drop. I think he'll be top 5 easily. To
Right.
honestly top 3. Depends on how many quarterback needy teams there are because there's 3 potential quarterbacks that will go off early as well.
Spin said we're going to trade Elam to Arizona for their first round pick. I love it. I love it. I
I
love
don't
the
think that's
positive
gonna happen.
thinking.
I
No,
don't
it's
think that's
not.
gonna happen. But
They
if
would
we
trade
could,
you Kyler Murray first before they traded you their first round pick.
yeah, no one wants that dead cap. But yeah, I mean, if he could, I would love to do whatever we could to get Marvin Harrison. It's just we don't have the assets in order to do it. What we would have to do in order to try to move up to get him would be
Here's a
impossible.
question, and this isn't a criticism. I have something real quick. Matt says I still like college football, just can't devote the time to watching it live. If you're an NFL fan, how are you not a college football fan?
Yeah, I have a
Because
lot of
that's
people that say that. I have a lot of
because
people that say it.
Joe Miller, the voice he's the number one guy. He's like, don't like it, can't stand it, never watch it. And I'm like,
Yeah,
but
I
how do
think
you
it's
not watch it when these guys are the ones that come and feed your team?
Yeah, I think it's hard. Number one, I feel like the more people I talk to about it, there's so many college football teams. So if you're not attaching yourself to someone you watched when you were a kid, or attaching yourself to someone that you went to college, actually went to college.
Touche,
Um,
Matt. Very, very true. I'll
yes,
give you that. Very true.
yes.
You have yes.
Matt
Touche.
said he's too busy with Buffalo Rumbling, so I get it. But to be honest with you, growing up, I watched Syracuse, so it was hard for
Right.
me to choose to go to the University of Miami over Syracuse because I felt guilty. I'm like, we're gonna play Syracuse because that was back in the Big East. I was like, this is gonna be difficult, and um, so I've always, you pick one team and then you kind of just like to pay attention to what's else is going on. I don't think most people sit there and watch um a lot of games. I'm
Right.
usually traveling a lot on Saturdays, so I'll watch obviously my Hurricanes game. If I can't watch it on television or be there, I'm watching it on my phone. Um and then, I've jumped on the Colorado bandwagon this year. I enjoy watching them play, so I'm going to continue to watch them play. And then usually I'll watch the games that involve the teams that I hate because I want to root against them.
You're just a giant conundrum, Sarah.
I'm a hater a
You're
little
just a
bit.
giant conundrum. You
I'm a
can't stand
conundrum.
Florida State, but you will ride with the most famous Florida State alum of all time over and over again.
Well, I think Dion, the difference there is like, I mean, that it's obviously been years. I'll be honest, growing up, I couldn't stand Michael Irving. I couldn't stand him.
Sarah,
And
who's
he's
the head coach of the Oregon Ducks?
who's the head coach of the I don't know anymore. I mean, it
Oh
used to
wait, it's
be
somebody different. It used to be
I was
Mario
gonna say it
Cristobal.
used to be Chris, like
Yeah,
it used to be my coach.
it's Lansing now. It's the guy that was a DC for Saban at Alabama. So, or Lanning or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I was gonna say it used to be, the University of Miami coach, but
Yeah.
anyways, so when it comes to Dion, like I loved him as a player. I couldn't, obviously couldn't stand Florida. I didn't watch Florida State back when he played though. Same thing with Irving. I could not stand him, but I also didn't watch him play at the University of Miami. To me, he was a cowboy. Like, anyways. So I digress. I'm not a conundrum. I've developed over the years.
I understand. Well, hey, if you want to be a part of this, I don't know if people can jump in now just to do it if they
Yep.
want to join in.
Yep.
Where's the link, Sarah?
It's under the Line to Gain on Twitter. So
Okay.
just go under. It should be the last one. I think I have it pinned. So you guys could just click on the link and sign up. It's just to
Yeah,
test your knowledge
it's a
and
lot of fun. It gives us a chance to talk
fun
about the
against
big
us.
games
Yeah.
of the week coming up and, show our picks, talk about things, and we'll always highlight the one or two big games of the week. Obviously this week.
And just to show you, I'm circling so far. I am still first, just to let everyone know with my
Well,
picks.
I'm going to say what Matt said, that I just don't have time, Sarah, to study my picks all day long. I'm running around the hospital, trying to help,
Yeah.
save the world one rotator cuff
There
at a
you go.
time. So,
All right,
anyway,
guys.
but hey, we got games on tonight. There's a college game. Of course, we got the Giants are taking on, who they got?
49ers.
The 49ers. And you can watch my guy, Nick Bosa, one of my favorites in the league. But anyway, we appreciate you as always. And join us next Wednesday. And we'll be back here at 9 Eastern, 8 Central. More Line to Gain on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. I'm the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. She's Sara Larson. As always, one love and go Bills.
Go Bills.